Welcome to our webinar on SIPROTEC 5 version 9.80 news. My name is Thomas Klotz and I'm happy to be your moderator for this webinar. After graduating from Friedrich Alexander University in Erlangen, Germany as an electrical engineer in 1991, I joined the protection department in Siemens AG. Boasting more than 30 years of experience in power system protection, I have been working as sales in headquarters, sales abroad, and product lifecycle manager. My role today is heading the product lifecycle management team for SIPROTEC high voltage devices in Erlangen. Regarding the content of this webinar, you will learn more about what's new in version 9.80, unlocking the full potential of SIPROTEC 5 devices with the possibility to reduce your cost and to optimize your engineering process. We will start by presenting the topics we have highlighted because they are likely to be the most applied and of general interest. To ensure that you finish this webinar knowing all the topics and not just the highlighted ones, we will then present a general summary containing all the new features of version 9.80. If you already joined one of our last energy automation webinars, you already know the Q&A field on the upper right side in this application. Please type in your question to the presenter. We will answer your questions at the end of this session. If we can't manage to answer all questions during this live session, we will then answer by email afterwards. If you have comments, please use the chat box on the lower right. In case you are in full screen mode and want to see the Q&A and chat box, just press escape. And since we receive one question rather often, yes, we will record the webinar and make the recording and the slides available to all participants. Now let me introduce our expert. With a degree in electrical engineering, a postgraduate degree in higher education teaching, and an MBA in project management, Bruno Araisch boasts nearly 2 decades of experience in power system protection. Throughout his career, he has collaborated on diverse projects with customers across several countries, focusing on optimization, digitalization, and innovation. He has been part of Siemens since 2011 and works currently as a portfolio consulting professional for SIPROTEC protection devices in Erlangen, Germany. His main role is to promote SIPROTEC 5 devices on a global scale, helping customers to get the best out of these devices. Without further ado, Bruno, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Thomas, for this introduction, and a special thanks to you for attending this webinar. I'm glad to have the opportunity to present to you in this webinar the new features released for SIPROTEC 5 devices in version 9.80. As mentioned by Thomas, we divided the topics to be presented into 2 parts. We will first present 7 highlighted topics in the indicated order, and then a general description of all features released in terms of hardware, functionalities, and tools. Just don't forget that we will have our question and answer session at the end. Let's now present the highlighted topics. New universal power supply for 7SX82 and 7SY82 devices. Before version 9.80, when specifying a non-modular universal protection device, either 7SX82 or 7SY82, it was necessary to choose one of the 3 available power supply options. But now, this device has a universal power supply, which covers the application range of all the previous options. As examples of benefits, we can mention new universal power supply that supports all previous options, optimization of spare parts due to reduction of different variants, independency of customer power supply voltage, and reduced risk of energizing the device with an incompatible power supply voltage. For this specific topic, it's important to inform that the delivery release of the hardware is scheduled to November 2024. Additional standard variant without analog inputs for the 7SX85 devices. The new standard variant of 7SX85 device includes only binary inputs and binary outputs on the base module, and is suitable for applications where current and voltage transformer inputs are not required. If you wish to use this new option, you just need to select the AL4 option on the SIPROTEC 5 configurator. This new option allows you to reduce costs by optimizing the specified device for process bus client or central protection in small substation applications, as example. Routable GUIs. Routable GUIs, or just RGUIs, allows conventional GUIs communication to be applied to wide area protection applications with high-speed traversal of binary signals according to IC 61850-8-1 edition 2.1, including the technical report IC 61850-90-5. Some possible applications using RGUIs are inter-substation transfer trip, wide area load shedding, distributed energy resource orchestration, feeder automation, automatic fault isolation, and self-healing applications. To make it easier to understand, let's look at a simple but useful example. This image shows the exchange of binary signals by sending RGUIs from a SIPROTEC 5 publisher in one substation, substation 1 for example, to a SIPROTEC 5 subscriber in another substation, substation 2 for example. Another interesting example that demonstrates the benefits in using routable GUIs would be in the teleprotection scheme to protect a transmission line. In a standard solution that uses line differential protection, it is necessary to have a communication link that allows the exchange of analog signals and binary signals too. In this example, we have device 87L-1 sends the current measured on its side to device 87L-2. Device 87L-2 sends the current measured on its side to device 87L-1. 87L-1 and 87L-2 devices can exchange binary signals to block or unblock protection functions, intertrips, among others. And device 87T sends an intertrip signal to the circuit breaker at the other side through device 87L-2 and 87L-1. But if a backup communication link is available, we can now just use the routable GUIs as follows. In case of a failure in the main link, a redundant communication link over the backup link is established. Line differential protection is automatically blocked and distance protection is automatically unblocked, including the exchange of teleprotection signals. Device 87T sends an intertrip signal to the circuit breaker at the other side through devices 87L-2 and 87L-1. Bus bar protection for 1 zone and up to 8 bays on 7SX85 devices. Now it is possible to implement bus bar protection for 1 zone and up to 8 bays using the 7SX85 device with the same algorithm as in the 7SS85 device. This ensures very short trip time, very low CT requirements, high flexibility allowing the 7SX85 device to be used as a central protection device, including bus bar differential protection, supporting centralized and distributed applications as shown in the example. In this type of application, no configuration in the DXY5 single-line editor is necessary, which simplifies the engineering process. Residual flux measurement for transformer switching related to point-on-wave switching functionality. The classic point-on-wave closure, without consideration of residual flux, is good for transformer switching if the residual flux is zero or very small. However, if the same procedure is used in the presence of residual flux, the offset of the AC flux corresponds to the remanence before closure, which can lead to CT saturation and large inrush current. Starting in version 9.80, the point-on-wave switching can measure and take into account the residual flux in its calculation. A great advantage that we brought and that provides great flexibility in this application is that the voltage may be measured on any of the transformer windings. The residual flux measurement allows that the point-on-wave closer derive dynamic closing angle based on measured residual flux, applying a controlled closed command to the first CB pole and a second close command to remaining CB poles with settable delay. Thus, the most important condition, CT saturation and large inrush current, will be avoided as shown in this example. First step of typical based engineering for IC 61850 using DIGSI5. This new functionality allows multiple devices connected via IC 61850 protocol to be treated as a typical. In step 1, typical and child devices contain the sender IC 61850 datasets for GUIs, SMVs, and reports. The receiver data is planned for next steps. The typical based engineering for IC 61850 via DIGSI5 allows for the creation of new files as well as the modification of settings in a much faster, intuitive, and efficient way, with just a few steps as presented in our workflow. Typical based engineering can be used, for example, devices with a lot of GUIs publishing, mesh units in process bus environment, and devices with reports to IC 61850 client. Speed up migration of typed device to universal protection devices using DIGSI5. Universal protection devices are already a reality when it comes to SIPROTEC 5 devices. We have 7SX85 devices, just called as modular universal protection device, 7SX82 devices, called as non-modular universal protection device, the 7SY82 devices, called as non-modular universal protection LPIT device, and 7SX800 devices, called compact universal protection device. DIGSI5 version 9.80 offer a new option in device context menu called Migrate Configuration to Universal Device that initiates the change of the product code from non-modular typed device to a 7SX82 device, from modular typed device to a 7SX85 device. So for users migrating from typed device to universal device or only using universal device as spare parts, configuration migration is now extremely simple and efficient. This migration can now be carried out completely in few steps as presented. Let's now present the general description of all features released on version 9.80. Regarding new device types and hardware components, we have 7SX82 and 7SY82 universal power supply, already presented before, and 7SX85 additional standard variant without analog inputs, already presented before. Regarding essential new functionalities, we have routable GUIs, already presented before, 7SX800 voltage-based function package. The required number of function points has changed from 40 function points to 30 function points, which means a price reduction. 7SX85, busbar protection for 1 zone and up to 8 bays, already presented before. 7SY82, release of further functions. The functions NC49, that means thermal overload protection, and NC79, that means automatic reclosing, are now available. Line differential protection, delay for the stage IDIF Fast 2. A time delay setting for this stage was added. Point on wave switching, residual flux measurement for transformer switching, already presented before. Trip with broken wire detection. New functionality for tripping the circuit breaker in case of an open secondary circuit detection that can prevent high voltage at the fault location and protects personnel and the current transformer. Circuit breaker monitoring function extension. New functionality to complete circuit breaker monitoring, including circuit breaker inactivity time, circuit breaker operating time, that means how long the circuit breaker was closed, charging motor time, and mechanical execution time. Disconnector monitoring function extension. New functionality to complete the disconnector monitoring, including number of operations. And Web UI extensions. New functionality for monitoring spontaneous indications, deleting logs and records, and visualizing the online operating point for distance protection characteristics. The firmware and the Dixie device driver, also called DDD, in version 9.80, will be released for all SIPROTEC 5 devices, as shown here. Regarding tools, starting first with Dixie 5, we have the following news. Typical based engineering for IC 61850 on the step 1, as already presented before. Speed up migration of typed devices to universal protection devices, already presented before. Engineering of routable GUIs. Of course, with the release of routable GUIs, the Dixie 5 software needs to be compatible with its configuration. And usability improvements. So several usability improvements such as load security settings to multiple devices, allow 200 favorite settings instead of 100, introduce a warning when upgrading the ATEX certified device, because of course this could lead to loss of certification. Single line editor now allow to collapse or to expand all devices with only one click. Of course, this could be very useful when we are talking about an application with busbar protection or process bus applications. Regarding SIPROTEC tools, now we have the possibility to perform a restart or an initial restart. Finally, regarding SIPROTEC and SICAM Function Point Manager, since May 2024, 3 different functions extensions are supported by this tool for the SIPROTEC 5 devices. Function points, class-bound or classless, doesn't matter. Integrated Ethernet port, if available for the specific CPU and device type. And significant feature, if available for the specific device type. With this last information, we close the presentation of all topics. Thank you very much for your attention until this moment of the presentation. However, I ask for a few more minutes of your attention so that we can answer the questions sent to us. Thomas, do you have questions?
Thank you, Bruno. That has been an interesting session with insights into SIPROTEC 5 version 9.80 news. Our team selected a random question from the auditorium per highlighted topic and 1 question for the non-highlighted topics. We will read the questions aloud and hopefully we can answer them. So let's start with the questions. Bruno, here's the first question. I still had doubts regarding the universal power supply of universal devices. Are they already available?
Yes, Thomas. First, the new universal power supply for non-modular universal protection device, that means 7SX82 and 7SY82, is now available for selection on the SIPROTEC 5 configurator website, and DIGSI 5 is already compatible. However, the delivery release of this new universal power supply is planned for November 2024. I think it's important to highlight that the compact universal protection device, 7SX800, already have the universal power supply. Now, Thomas, I will make the next question for you. Why has Siemens released a device that has no current or voltage input? I don't see the point in an application that doesn't have a measured current or voltage. Good question.
Good question. Okay, there was a request from several customers from different regions to have this option. For us at Siemens, it was a way to provide the user with an option without analog inputs for applications that do not require analog inputs, thus allowing product optimization and finally cost reduction. As shown during the presentation, an example of an application that does not require the device to have analog inputs would be for the 7SX85 universal device working as a process bus client. That is, all analog quantities are acquired by the merging units and sent via process bus to the 7SX85.
Good.
Bruno, here's another question. I understood the explanation about routable goose, but I still have a question. What is the difference between a goose and a routable goose?
Interesting question too. Goose, that means generic, object-oriented substation event, was created by the IC 61850 standard as a device-to-device communication protocol for event-based intra-substation communication using layer 2 messaging. Routable goose has come to meet one additional requirement of routing a message from one substation in the grid to other or to several other substations in the grid, but now using layer 3 messaging. Thus, goose normally is blocked by the substation router while the routable goose gets through. Now, Thomas, I'll make a question for you now. Another question. Does the use of the busbar differential protection function on the 7SX85 device affects its performance?
Good question. The answer is very simple. No, it does not affect the performance of the 7SX85 device. The 7SX85 is fully compatible with the busbar protection function. However, in this scenario, it is just limited to one zone and up to 8 bays. But in addition to this function, you can enable other backup functions such as overcurrent protection, undervoltage protection, among many others that are available. And Bruno, there's one more question now from the auditorium. Is point-on-wave switching with residual flow measurement a completely new function?
No. It's just the same point-on-wave switching that was already available in SIPROTEC device, but now with this additional functionality of the residual flux measurement for transformers. So the same functionality with this additional feature.
Okay.
Thomas, we have one more question about IC 61850 protocol and DIGSI. So does typical based engineering for IC 61850 allow complete configuration of the IC 61850 protocol?
Yeah, the answer is partly. Okay, in detail. As informed during the presentation of this topic in version 980, we provide the first step, that means publishing the IEC 61850 datasets for GOES, sampled measured values and reports. However, receiving the datasets is planned for one of the next steps. Okay, Bruno, I have one more question for you from the auditorium. To migrate the configuration file from one type to another, how does Dixie select which will be the new type?
Okay, this question, let's say, it's simple. Of course, we become the Dixie 5 simple to exactly to do this job for us. So the selection takes place in a very simple way. If the product code of the SIPROTEC 5 device ends with 81 or 82, that means we're talking about a non-modular device, it will be migrated to a 7SX82. But if the product code of the SIPROTEC 5 device ends with 85, 86, or 87, that means we are talking about a modular device, it will be migrated to a 7SX85. It's just important to highlight that the user needs to check, of course, if the universal device, the new device, supports all the functions used on the previous device. It's simple.
Okay, Bruno, now let's go to our last question. For the new price of the voltage function protection package, is it valid if I already have the relay installed?
Good question, too, because it's cost, and the answer is yes, it's valid. So if you already have a 7SX8 device in service, or just as a spare part, or you just purchased the device, you just need to update the firmware to the version 9.80, and the new cost of 30 function points will be available for you. So it's simple.
So, dear auditorium, thanks a lot for your questions, and thank you to Bruno for the entire presentation and for answering together with me some of the questions asked. Still open questions, there are plenty of them, will be answered via email. Don't hesitate to contact us if questions come to your mind later. I am sure that our expert will get back to you soon. In the upper right corner, you find the SIPROTEC version 980 news slides for download. As the download area is not visible in full screen mode, you may have to press escape. The access to the recording is automatically available to all participants directly after this session with the same link you got for the live webinar. Thank you very much for your very active participation. It was a pleasure for me to guide you through this session where we learned about all the new features released in the new version 980 of SIPROTEC 5 protection devices. I'm looking forward to meeting you soon at one of our next webinars. Stay safe and sound, take care, and goodbye.